I have done a few Dado Blade videos. I've used Dado Blades in some of my projects. But what I've never really done is gone into depth about Dado Blades, and I've actually had a few people request that I do that. I'm sure there's a lot of videos out there on them. This will be my video. Everything Dado Blades. Everything I think you need to know starting off. So in today's video, I'm going to explain what is a stack of Dado Blades. What are Dado Blades used for? How to properly set up a Dado stack. How to make cuts with your Dado stack once you get it set up. Two different Dado stacks that I recommend for two totally different reasons. These two right here. And hopefully this video will give you everything you need to get you started with whatever Dado stack you're about to use. Let's start this off with what is a stack of Dado Blades anyways. A Dado set, Dado stack, or Dado blade is a type of circular saw blade. It's usually used with a table saw or radial arm saw, and it's a non-through cut blade. It's not going to cut through your workpiece. Now I've heard these are not legal in every country, which kind of boggles my mind because they're a very, very safe blade to use. Yeah, they're kind of scary, but they're safe. They're a lot safer than a regular saw blade for sure. The 10-inch through cut blade is way more dangerous than a Dado stack. So if they are illegal in your country, leave a comment. Tell me why, if you know why, or what your thoughts are on that and the Dado blades. I'm kind of curious to get your input. Now the stack will consist of two outer blades, chipper blades on the inside, some shims, and then some even include spacers. It kind of depends on what stack you buy and how they have their stack designed. It varies. The inner chipper blades, they can be added and removed depending on your desired width, and they ultimately remove the inner waist of the cut. There's also a wobble type blade. I've never seen one of these in person. I've only seen them online. I don't know a lot about them. I do know that they serve the same purpose by spinning untrue, almost like a wobble. So it gives you the same groove. However, I know one of the drawbacks on them from a little bit of research I did is they're not near as accurate. I don't know a lot about them. Feel free to research them. What are Dado sets used for? They can be used to make quick work out of rabbets, grooves, box joints, tenons, and half flaps are just some of the most common ones, but they make very quick work out of any of those joints. Groove joint, what is that? It's just that. It's a groove in a piece of wood that another piece of wood fits snugly into. And it's often used in shelving, maybe a spacer in a cabinet or something like that, where two boards are going to go into top and bottom and slide in there. You usually glue it. Shelving, you don't have to glue it. If you wanted them adjustable, they could slide into those grooves, making your shelves different adjustments, however you want to do it, but that's a groove. Rabbet, not the animal, but it's a recessed groove on the edge of your workpiece. Often seen in picture frames, that little recessed groove on the inside of your picture frame where your glass, your artwork, all that sets into it, that is setting in the rabbet of the picture frame. Half flap, pretty self-explanatory. Half flap is basically you're taking half the material on two different boards and then you put them together and it creates the same thickness of board and you glue them together. It's a pretty strong joint. And box joint makes for a really cool look on like a box or something, and it's a really, really strong joint. I mean, it's giving a lot of glue surface, and hey, it looks cool. And a tenon. A tenon is seen with mortises, the mortise and tenon joints. The tenon is the piece that is going to go into the mortise. This makes for a very strong joint. Let's talk about setting up the actual saw with the Dado blades. Before you even buy a stack of blades, make sure your saw can accommodate a Dado stack. Your owner's manual to your saw should tell you in a section that says non-through cut or Dado stack little section, and it should give you input on whether or not you can even accommodate a stack. This is very important. Some saws' arbor is not long enough to accommodate it, and they're not designed for it. So you want to make sure first your saw can even handle it before you go and spend the money. First thing you're going to need to know is how thick your stack is going to be. I will set my board on a flat surface and stack the blades next to it. Get it as close as possible to the thickness of the board that you're going to be cutting. Important to note, set these up in the same order as they will be placed onto your saw arbor. After removing the riving knife and your cut through saw blade, I will take the stack I just made and start sliding the blades onto the arbor, starting with the outer blade and ending with the other outer blade. Make sure your chipper blades are all going the correct direction and that the actual carbide is not touching other carbide. Once you get all the blades on, you will either apply the nut and flange or just the nut. In my saw's case, if I have a full 13/16 inch stack, I can only use the nut as there is not enough room for the flange / washer. My saw gives these actual instructions, so it's critical that you read your instructions to your saw. After tightening down your blades, you can now apply your throat plate made for a dado stack. These have a wider opening for obvious reasons. I made mine, or you can buy one made for your saw. If you want me to show you how I made mine, tell me in the comments and I'll be glad to do a video on it. It's a very simple process. From here, you're ready to adjust the height you need for your cut. Before making your first official cut, you want to make sure first that the cut's going to be suitable and the fit is going to be what you desire. I look for a nice snug fit, but you still want room for the glue if you're going to use glue. And if it's too sloppy, it's going to be hard to make everything nice and square. Now you may want, in some cases, it to purposely slide back and forth. Maybe you want a shelf that's going to slide in and out. So you really have to make sure this fit is going to work for you. So it's critical that you test it first. What I do to test this, it's very simple. I get a piece of scrap wood, same thickness of the wood that I'm going to be making my cuts on my actual project, and I do practice cuts until the fit is where I need it. This is where the little shims and micro adjustments come into play, because I'm telling you, some of those micro adjustments, you may just need 1 or 2 of them on there, and that's all the difference in the world to make it a perfect fit. This is a perfect example of why you want to do a practice cut. These are all the cuts I made before the final fit. First one, you can see it's very sloppy. Second one, very sloppy. This one, way too tight. Too tight. This one is pretty good if you're going to want to make a sliding shelf or something. But I think it's still, in my opinion, a little sloppy. Now the final cut, I took out a micro shim. It fits perfectly in there. It'll actually hold the piece up, but I can also pull it out. So that is the perfect fit for this particular piece that I was looking for. Again, it's whatever you're looking for, but this is why it's critical to do the practice cut. This could have been your actual real project, and wood's not cheap. One thing to note is whenever you're doing through cuts, you never want to use your miter gauge and your fence at the same time, because it can cause a bind and kickback. Anybody that has experience in woodworking or knows table saws knows that is a no-no. However, with dado blades, these are non-through cuts. So you can use your miter sled or miter gauge and the fence in combination with each other, because it's not going to move. It's not a through cut. It can't bind. You just run it through. Another thing to think about when you're making your cut is to go nice and steady. Let the saw do the work. Remember, the blade is removing a lot of material at one time, so you can't just force it through there. You'll throw a breaker or trip your saw, whatever it is, but just nice and easy. and you shouldn't have any issues. Common cuts that you're going to make. In my opinion, your most common cuts are going to be the groove, the rabbet, and the half lap. Those are the ones that I use the most. When cutting a groove, you want to set the blade the height that you want. In most cases, I go about halfway through the thickness of the material I'm cutting. Then you're going to want to mark your piece on where you're going to apply these grooves. And I'm going to tell you now, if you're doing two opposite pieces, and let's say it's going to be a shelf, you need to make sure you cut them mirrored to each other so that this shelf lines up. If you go by measurement only, when you go to put that together, it's going to be off. So you have to have a stop or something, set up your saw where you can make those exactly the same on both pieces. So keep that in mind. Rabbets are really easy. I've actually done a video on how to do rabbets without a dado stack, so feel free to check that out. But all you're going to do is, again, set the height of your blade and then move the piece to the edge of the blade where the blade is going to remove just that outer edge that you want removed. Sometimes you may want what I call a sacrificial board up against your fence. This allows you to get the blade right up to the fence without damaging your saw fence. You do not want to do this without a sacrificial board of some type. You will damage your fence on your saw, and depending on your saw, fences can be very expensive. Half lap joint. It is just that. It is literally two halves taken on each piece. You lap them together and it makes the thickness of the original piece. Half lap does take some practice. I suggest definitely doing a practice board on this till you get exactly half. However, I have a little tool that is very useful, and it allows you to mark exactly half of your board so you can set it up to there, and 9 out of 10 times when I use that little tool, I get it the very first try. But I still use a practice piece. You don't want to screw up your actual project. There are two types of dado blades that I've used and that I recommend. I recommend them because I've used them and I have personal experience with them. I've even compared both of these, and I'll link those videos in case you're interested. But one is the Freud. It's about $99. Get it on Amazon. It's very quality blade. It is more expensive, some of the drawbacks, and you're going to have to watch my comparison videos. I don't want to get into it, make this long and drawn out. But it is a quality set of blades. The next one is the Harbor Freight. I have the Admiral. Don't know if they make this anymore, but the Bauer is what they sell now, and I think it's the higher end blades. But these have been phenomenal. I have not one complaint about this set of dado stacks. So if you're wanting to save 36 bucks or so, and you don't know how often you're going to use your dado blades, you're not going to be resharpening them, this one is perfectly fine. So they both have their ups and downs. I would say they're both good. You can't go wrong either way you go. I appreciate you watching the video. I hope this helps you or whoever that might needed this information before you get started using your dado blades. I link all the videos I discussed and tools and everything that I use in my description, so feel free to check those out if you like. I'll see y'all next time.